So how has your summer been?
It's been good actually. I really don't feel in a position to complain.
Mm.
It's been me and my wife and my dog a lot. We
The
haven't
most
really seen
important.
other, yeah, we haven't really seen other people. But honestly, I don't mind that.
Mm.
Yeah, my sister just had a baby, and I would have liked to be able to visit Sweden for that reason.
Yeah.
We I am sad that we had to postpone. We were supposed to open for Iron Maiden twice this
Mm.
summer. There are things like, and it's not fun that that didn't happen. But what's
Yeah.
been happening instead is not bad per se.
Mm.
And as you know, Iron Maiden, that has been moved. Nothing
Yeah.
is going away. Things are just being delayed. And in just the spirit of making the best out of a bad situation, I can't complain. I'm healthy. My wife is healthy. My parents, my in-laws, siblings, friends, and all that. Everyone is doing good still, that are near and dear to me.
Mm.
So, and the summer has been nice. And when you're in a band and travel a lot and tour a lot, you don't really experience seasons. You travel to different
Mm.
types of
Yeah.
winter all year round. And now I've been all stop and smell the roses, can become a stop and smell the roses kind of guy.
Mm.
I know, we live here, on this island, Lautasari, and I just, have become very familiar with the bird life, seen a fox, a
Oh.
couple of hedgehogs, so it's and in that sense, I wouldn't have had that right now, I guess, to the same extent. So I'm choosing to see this positive or like that, because what else can you do? And as long as people are healthy around me, I'm not in a position to complain. And
That, yeah.
both me and my wife, we can continue our work from home, so we're good.
Those are very important things. Do you think that maybe those things could like inspire you musically now that you're smelling the roses and seeing the wildlife?
uh, I'm sure something will come out of this, but I don't see a huge that I don't feel like I've had a huge epiphany connected to it. And
Yeah.
it's just life.
Yeah.
Art imitates life. Life imitates art,
True.
and of course something will happen. But it's also, I already did a whole album about I should say, did a whole album about owls and
Mm.
eagles, and there's been a vulture and wings on a blood angel. So the bird life, I should probably keep that away from lyrics
Yeah.
for a couple of albums, because I don't know, I've become deeply fascinated with birds. When I get old, I'm going to become an ornithologist when I retire,
Very
travel the
cool.
world with binoculars. But that should probably stay out of my lyrics for a while,
Yeah,
because
maybe.
I'm a bit obsessed. So no, and just because that this album is coming out, most of the working hours have been related to press,
Mm.
and when it hasn't been that, it's been just figuring out what we can do as a band while being apart and while not traveling. So it's been a lot of social media presence things
Mm.
and streams and
Yeah.
different type of work. So once the album comes out and all these interviews have been dealt with and it starts to slow down, we all are in the band gonna write more this fall than we would have otherwise, because again, all tours are canceled. So
Yeah, you get more time. Yeah. So,
mm.
well, the album is coming out this August. How was the album process like when you started recording it?
The whole process was, I really enjoyed it. It
Mm.
was Feathers and Flesh. If we go back in time, it didn't start super hectic, but it ended up being very hectic
Okay.
to just finish up the songs and get the production done. It's a long, it's a 1 hour album,
Mm.
and that translates to, I'm sure there's a formula where you can see how long on average it's much time you spend on each second
Mm.
on a recording, aside
Yeah.
from writing it, because writing a song can take 10 years or 10 minutes,
Mm.
but everything else around it. And it just, all the things we put on there made it a very demanding project that we also, and the touring started 2 weeks before the album came out. And Avatar Country also happened in a super short period of time for being us, from deciding we're going to do this and we're going to do it now. And so write, record, release, and announce, and everything happened in such a compressed period of time that this time I was said immediately, we need time for this process this time. It's been very crazy the last few years. So let's start working on it now so that there's room to not work on it. So there was really some period were intense. Some, we would meet up and go to some cabin somewhere together and to really focus on the writing. We always do that a bunch of times in each session, write apart and come together, write together, do that a bunch of times, then rehearse, then studio. And those cabins become super intense and you never have enough hours, but it was this inspired stress, and it wasn't chasing a deadline. It was just like, oh my God, life is so short and we have so many ideas.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Yeah.
So there was intense moments, but never negative, or not, at least no long period of negative stress connected to it. So it really had a chance to grow. And for that reason, I enjoyed it immensely.
Do you think, it reflects on the album that you didn't have so much that, negative stress? Do you think it came true?
I think it shows inequality. I think, because one thing that this album has that might be that in one way that it's one of our best, which I feel every time, which is my job to feel that every time, and definitely my job to say every time, but it's so articulated. I feel like it seems to me that all the songs, I believe that people truly will feel the way they are meant to feel when they hear it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The angry stuff are angry on this, for real. The sad is sad. So, and that I think is a result of really having time to live with the album, to write a lot of songs, and then go back to after working on 20 songs, go back to the first one with fresher ears again and redefine it. So that having more time really helped with that.
So why do you think the album is so dark and heavy?
Well, it started with a purely some aesthetic intention, that because Avatar Country was what it was, and a thing we knew we only were going to do once. Actually, again, I guess I should rewind to Feathers and Flesh because of what it was, because that is a very dark album, thematically and everything. Then then the music goes in all kinds of different places, and we were like, maybe next time we want more, have a bit more of things from more extreme metal on there.
Yeah.
We always mix it up anyway, but like, we didn't grind on this album, that kind of vibe. So we had a thought in the back of our head, but then of course all the inspiration and all the ideas and everything we did pulled towards Avatar Country. So that was yet another album where we didn't just go with the heavy shit, the really heavy shit, So as we were done with Avatar Country, we kind of said to each other that, next one's going to be really heavy, right? Yeah. And so it started with that purely aesthetic intention, like now it's time. But then you also have things like that. Since I was a teenager, I've learned to use songwriting as a way to process life. Self-therapy or whatever you want to call it, just a way of, it's become part of how I deal with life. And doing Avatar Country, that was like 2 years without therapy, and so a lot of things grew in that period, I think, and it became this self-feeding loop. And when certain ideas came into place, such as also every album is supposed to become more honest than the one before. We've always been as honest as possible, but it's a process of growth. And it affects, there's more self-deceit in a 19-year-old than in a 34-year-old, hopefully.
Yeah.
So we peel away a layer of the onion every album.
Okay.
And one thing about this album that we reached in terms of this honesty is that a lot of the songs, or all of them probably in one way or another, deals with the thing of being in your own way, me being in my own way, us as a people.
Yeah.
We are standing in our own way, and that kind of confrontation made me like, okay, now here we have an album that it's pointing its finger more at things than I have been comfortable in the past. And then in order to do that, there's some self-examination involved, because I do not wish to be hypocritical about it. So then there are a lot of finger pointing in front of a mirror as well. And the most clear example of that dynamic is probably summarized in the first two lines, shit that makes me angry, in When All But Force Has Failed, where I sing, bird carcass with a belly full of plastic, one more year and I'll be a millionaire. And so yeah, I'm angry at people, I'm angry at myself, and let's see where I direct that energy in life. But in that song, I try to hit that balance of like, where I can talk about us, where I can talk about you, and I can talk about me in this. And yeah, it requires some honest self-examination that every album is supposed to be. But I felt once again that it reached another level.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that this will show on your live shows? Is it going to be a much different now that you have all these new angry, dark songs?
Yeah, well, the things we've been talking about there is the way I've been describing, if they have it again compared to the Avatar country thing, and we are very much like, if you have done one thing, you want to do something different next time. Yeah. It's always a bit of a reaction towards where we were, because there's so much we want to do. And Avatar country, because it had this very 80s over the top heavy metal superhero approach to it, also the stage with its stairs and the elevator and bells and whistles, it was in a way pornographic. It's all very out there, and it shows everything. It doesn't leave much to your imagination, and it feeds you, and you just take it kind of one way street. And if that was pornographic, the way we are thinking now is that it should be more erotic. Not literally, obviously. We keep our pants on, but it's just, to me, that word, if the difference would lie in that erotic is something then that where more happens in your brain, where you do more of the work if you're in the audience, and the reaction and the power of attraction in it becomes much deeper. It has more meaning to it. It connects more to who you are in your psyche. And so therefore find a way to be more suggestive. In practical terms, that means stripping away some of the, physical stuff on stage. And it lies more in, taking the light show to another level and work more with darkness. And therefore, again, try to just reflect that level of sincerity and warped sense of reality that still is based more on planet Earth and the here and now than what we have done in the past. Another way of describing would be that Avatar country stage was like an opera. If you go to the opera, they have a huge set built around. If they are in a castle, they have a little balcony and some trees and the walls.
Yeah, there's a whole stage production there.
Yeah, exactly. But then you have the power of more minimalistic approach on theater, the black box theater, where black floor, black walls, black ceiling, and if you put in a park bench, you're in a park. If you put in a sofa, you're in a living room, and your imagination, you do some of the work, and the actors do the rest of it, and it's more focused on the human expression. In a way, it's less artificial or less constructed. I wouldn't call opera artificial, but it's definitely more constructed. So, and that reflects, now we have stage clothes that are, these kind of worker suspender overall. So again, captures more of the maybe an industrial vibe. a more get down and dirty vibe. There are less layers, so we are more, again, our nipples are covered, but you're still, the clothes also makes you more distant or physically closer. If you're Lordi, there's a layer there between you and them, that isn't there with Iggy Pop, for instance.
Very true.
So even the stage clothes reflect that. Also, the stage clothes have been this time more than ever designed to be comfortable moving around in. So we really free ourselves from any form of chains with this one.
Yeah, well, that sounds very fascinating. Do you think that now in the age of, like bands like Avatar and Lordi and Ghost, there are a lot of taking everything to the next level in terms of like visual storytelling. What do you think can be done in that sense to do something fresh, now that everything has already been overblown, for example, like Avatar Country was, other than just strip away?
Well, there are always new things to do, visually. There's always if it just terms of what you can build on stage, the possibilities are endless. And especially if we go back to the opera angle, then that you talk using production, it's just there you can create whatever setting you want. If you want to be in the mountains, on a spaceship, in the caves, in a room, in a dungeon, on another planet, and all those comes with endless variations as well. And if you strip things away, then I think the possibilities become even more endless, because again, in a more minimalistic environment, what you do will matter more, I guess. And you can shift your focus on, do you want people to laugh? Do you want them to be scared? Do you want them to cry? What emotions do you want to invoke? And I think there's no limitations in the possibilities. It's just, if you want to do it like those bands you mentioned and like us, the reason it works for us and for those bands, I believe, is because it's not just, hey, let's paint our faces, because that worked for Kiss. It's in all these cases deeply connected first and foremost to the music. If you listen to, I did for a podcast I do with my wife, Metal Break, we actually did interview Lordi, and listened a lot into the latest album and all that, and that looks the way it sounds.
Yeah,
that's why it works. It all comes from the same creative approach, and that's also true with Ghost, and that's definitely true for us. And it always starts with the music first, and as if it is deeply personal, and if the visual version of what you're doing is deeply personal, it will work together. Then you see a million always examples of bands that feel like, oh, we have to do something visually, but it's not really connected to what you sound like, then it won't work. My favorite example is, look at the band photos around the time when Queensryche released Operation Mindcrime. Or was it Rage for Order? I don't remember. One of those two. And they just have the biggest hair of all the 80s and the long coats. And it's like, this is not what it sounds like. And no one talks about that look anymore. It didn't last.
Yeah, that's true.
The way other things last.
Like
Iron Maiden. Yeah, exactly. The albums are amazing. Albums are amazing. But just if you want to create this full package, it all has to be part of the same art project and express the same thing. Because Iron Maiden, no faces were painted, but they definitely always looked the way they sounded.
Very true.
And true with Judas Priest, true with all the greats in this, Even true, it's also true on the other scale of the end, like Foo Fighters, they look the way they sound as well, and therefore it works. Metallica, yes, it sounds like dudes with black t-shirts,
Yeah, you don't need like the masks and the face paint, the look, exactly. It could be anything.
Exactly. So it's not there's no right or wrong here. It's just, it has to be an accurate extension of the music, and it has to be an extension of who you are as a person. Because if you go on stage, unless it is opera or a musical, and heavy metal is not, we can be very inspired by that as showmen. but we are not actors there. It's an
That's a good
extension of
point.
who we are. It's so for that reason, we're not actors, we are reactors. It's so dependent on what the audience does.
Or interpreters of music, in a way.
Yeah, exactly. But in our case, as we are interpreters of our own music, it's all always boils down to being based on us. That has to be the starting point for it, and that's how you make sense out of it. So you get Ghost, you have Lordi, yes, you have Avatar, and yes, you have Slipknot, Rammstein, Kiss, Cooper, and so on, as Behemoth, all very different from each other, but just as a blanket statement, yes, there's a makeup bag in the dressing room, and it all makes sense because, again, it reflects the personalities of the band, and it reflects the music.
Indeed. So how do you think, in the grand scheme of things, how will the new album fit in the whole story that you're trying to tell with your visuals and your sort of look?
It will fit very well because, again, now this whole that I know the way I parse of what I described about the stage is a bit abstract.
Yeah.
But it's also because we're in the middle of working it out, and now we kind of paused it because we're not touring this year. But still, we base the whole framework of what we will do on tour is always first based on the current album. That creates the framework for it, But then we still find a way to fit in, Avatar on an album is, of course, the Avatar right here, right now.
Yes.
And that is something that we then eventually will move on from and do the next thing. But Avatar on stage, that is Avatar of the past as much as it is Avatar of present. And it's even because during a tour, things evolve and change, and you get ideas and redefine what you do. So there's always a little tidbit of Avatar of the future. So it's more, so there's a wider definition there. And it can be as simple as, I don't know, think back on Michael Jackson concerts. When he did Smooth Criminal, he put on the white hat and wore the white jacket, and ta-da, remember this music video? And, that he could do a decade after the Bad album came out. So you can always do those revisits. That's all about just finding the right curve when you when you construct a set list, where you just want to make sure that the audience is ready for that moment once it comes.
Once again, a very good point. If you could change one thing in the music business, what would you change?
I would add a 0 to every check that a band receives.
To the front or to the back?
At the back. There are definitely things in the past that in what kind of contracts we signed at different times that I would love to have a time machine and change. But then it's hard to say, because what can you do in the beginning when if no one else will, approach you? I don't know, it's tricky, because if I would have been older, I probably would have said something I would go back to before streaming was a thing. But our first album came out in 2006. I have only known the file sharing is just part of how life was. And I remember having arguments with friends who claimed to have liked metal but didn't have any CDs at home. And I despised them. Or someone's big brother who always, when I came with a CD, me and a friend, we both collected, But if I bought the Ozzy CDs, he would buy the In Flames CDs, and we would borrow them and listen to each other's homes. And his big brother would always come and grab, especially the power metal albums I brought over he liked, and, put them into rip MP3s. And I would yell at him, like, dude, buy a fucking album.
Yeah.
But, I also think, thanks to streaming, I can have these amazing moments. Living here in Finland, I once walked past a piano that says Fatser. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's that's chocolate. Wait.
Yeah.
And internet gives me the Googling and Wikipedia, and he had a brother. His brother had a music store and opened one of the first, if not the first, record labels in Finland, and would send groups to send orchestras to record in like Germany or St. Petersburg and stuff, and come home, and then release Suomi Jazzet Orkesterit. I don't remember the song now, but then I have Spotify and beep boop 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 boop. Oh, I hear one of the earliest musical recordings in Finnish.
Yeah.
And like that is so cool.
Indeed.
And I think the whole accessibility that now, I don't know, that Ginger can be an international sensation.
Thanks to YouTube, yeah.
That Alien Weaponry can be an international sensation, that The Who can be an international sensation, that bands from the Middle East can reach out and reach us, the stories can be told like that. Yes, it's harder to make money in music, but it's still there. I can still sell a t-shirt. If the LP looks cool enough, we can sell that too. And people still buy tickets to see a show if you give a damn and give them a good show.
Yeah.
So that works out. There are still too many rich people in the world anyway. And so that is all fine. And then I think the upside of it is it's worth it, It's
definitely, yeah.
It's more democratic like this. So long answer to say I don't really know. But,
well, that's fine too. Well, maybe things are fine how they are because there are upsides and downsides to everything.
Yeah, exactly. They are what they are.
Yeah.
And the mega stars are maybe not as rich, or if they have to be sponsored by something to get that wealth, and then suddenly everyone is doing an energy drink commercial, and that's not so cool.
Yeah.
But then you can be 3 girls from Indonesia who likes Primus and System of a Down and slam it while wearing
hijab.
Not hijab. Thank you. I was about to say niqab, but niqab is covers wearing hijabs and rocking it out. So and how the hell would I have found out about them and immediately get to hear and see them without where we are at today?
Very true.
So it's pretty worth it, I would say.
Definitely. Any final last words for the Finnish people who are waiting for the album and to see you live once again when this all is over?
Well, I hope now that I'm home, and my home is Finland since the last almost 6 years, that means that I can finally, no tour will interrupt my ambition to go and take a Finnish class. So at the very least, I hope to next time I stand on stage in Finland be able to say, I don't know, how much, 1 cup of coffee, please, can you show me the way to the railway station or something, So I very much look forward for a whole lot of reasons, I look forward to play Finland again, but as the cherry on top will be to hopefully be able to speak finally a little bit of actual Finnish.
That's very cool. Thank you so much, Tuck, and I hope you best of health to you and your wife.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.